Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we are doing the Steam Spring Cleaning Follow List Cleanup. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I stream Hearthstone and talk about video game news and look at all the games that have come out in the past few days on Steam. If a game looks good enough, I will usually put it on the follow list. Sometimes, if it looks really great, I'll immediately move it to the tier above that and put it on my Steam wishlist, which is a highly curated list that I use to ask people to support my channel by gifting me games off that wishlist. So, there's a long list here, and we need to look through these games in the spirit of spring cleaning and determine if these games are good enough to go to the wish list, or if they're not good enough, if they've been in early access for far too long, if they have somehow gotten worse as a quality of product, or if my standards have just increased in determining whether a game is worth covering on my YouTube channel. We will then just remove them from the follow list and effectively put them back into the wild as far as Steam's storefront is. So we're going through games that start with the letter H today. There may not be too many, but I wouldn't be surprised if there still is. There seems to be a lot of games that start with every letter of the alphabet. And we're looking at Half Dead 2. So I will say, if you are familiar with the awful sci-fi movie series Cube, this game should look a little familiar. There was Cube, then Cube 2 Hypercube, then Cube 3 Genesis or something like that. There may have even been a Cube 4 that was direct to video. Cube 3 I think was direct to video. The first movie was an interesting kind of story, escape story, character driven story. But the basics of it and what this game is blatantly ripping off, and I'm a little surprised that it hasn't been taken down via a copyright claim. The general idea is people wake up in a three-dimensional Rubiks Cube, if you'd imagine that, where there's always 6 faces and 6 doorways to leave in those faces. Now, that's in the movie. In the game, they've made the cube rooms a little bit bigger, or kind of considerably bigger, and only had you exit through the 4 faces unless you're leaving a level, which is kind of like beating a level in which you jump downward. I don't believe you ever climb upward, although maybe as this is still early access, they'll put a room in where there's elevators. Inside of these rooms, there are either nothing or there are traps that will either trap you in the room or just try and damage you but not trap you in the room. If you're trapped in the room, you die pretty much instantly. If you're not, you could potentially run through a trapped room. This is similar to the movie. In fact, it's very similar to the movie. Now, I will say this robotic looking worm demon is not something that was in the movie. And a pile of skulls is not in the movie. What they've done interesting here is they've also added a player versus player and a co-op mode, so you can either play as a team trying to escape this Rubik's Cube that doesn't have to be 3 rooms by 3 rooms. It can be customized. Or you can play player versus player, and thus everybody's running from room to room trying to find weapons that you'll find on corpses that might be laying around, and fighting each other till seeing one survives. Only one is surviving. You're also given something that is directly from the movie, which is a shoe, which you can throw the shoe, and then if you can retrieve it, you can use it again. By throwing a shoe in a room, you can test to see if the room is going to be one of the trap rooms where you can't escape and will die in it. And so it is kind of asset flippy on the characters because it is just random people, and it is a little different from the movie because what the people were wearing in at least the first movie was pretty standardized, and there weren't any real weapons in the first movie that were just lying around. And there's not a lot of logic behind it. There wasn't really logic behind the movie series, but it's a fun concept for a game. You can play it as a battle royale, or you can play it as a team building game. It's still in early access though, so I guess what I need to do is just leave it on the follow list, because I refuse to put early access games on the wish list. It is also a little weird, I will say, that Half Dead 1 came out August 1st, 2016, and then they jumped in 2019 to rebooting it and working on it again, and it's early access again. So Half Dead 2 really should have been a finalized product as of day one. That being said, the metrics which we're looking for games are, do they have a certain appeal to me, whether that's visually or through the concept or the story or maybe even the audio, although it's hard to tell the audio because there really isn't any way to listen to audio on Steam pages. Not that I have, because I have muted the videos, and listening to the audio on most trailers would be super annoying. So this is a game that definitely does fall under the category of a game that has a special appeal to me for my fandom of a terrible sci-fi channel movie, which, in all fairness, the first Cube movie was actually a decent movie coming out at a decent time when the Sci-Fi Channel was better than it has been over its lifetime. For the majority of the Sci-Fi Channel's lifetime, it's been a pretty pathetically bad TV channel. But the other metric which we'd be using to look at a game would be mob rule and whether it has relevancy. And I determine relevancy by an arbitrary, does it have 20 or more reviews of verified purchasers, which is what these numbers are, and are they in the positive category, being labeled as positive, very positive, or mostly positive, or overwhelmingly positive, which, by the way, those key phrases are more determined by the number of reviews than the percentage of positive reviews. You'll see something often has 1,000 reviews and it's called overwhelmingly positive, but it might only be 75% of those reviews are actually positive, instead of what you would assume is that if something said it was overwhelmingly positive, it would be approaching 100% positive reviews. So this game also falls under both categories. It's relevant because a lot of people played it and had a good experience with it. This also isn't a game I really needed to consider, and the only reason I did consider it is because it had so many reviews, but I did not look to see if it was early access. That's why we're looking at it, because I'm only considering games that either have 20 verified reviews or games that have been out for 6 months or more, so that came out before January 1st, 2019 as of this recording. So this is a game that will stay on the follow list, and we'll talk about it some more later, I guess. That's a bad option. That was a bad game to use to highlight what the red flags are. Next game we're looking at is Hasbro's Battleship, which is 91% positive of 12 verified reviews, which is actually a little surprising because I'm pretty sure there was at least one or two other Hasbro Battleship games on Steam that were very poorly reviewed. In a weird way, Hasbro games seem to be badly made when put on Steam and digitally. I don't know why that is the case, because it's not like the games are particularly difficult. You would simply have to program something to run either in the Unity engine or maybe an HTML5 application. that would run everywhere. For Hasbro in particular, if you got it as a HTML5 application that would run on the web and anywhere like that, it would be really easy to make a game like this and make sure it runs well on almost every single type of device you could think of. But this game is positive, 91% positive, but it's under that arbitrary 20 reviews. However, it also came out August 14th, 2018, so it's had its 6 months. It's $9.99, and then if you want to buy DLC, that'll bump it up to $20.99, or $21.98 in total. It has in-app purchases, which is suspicious and not something I'd really want to see on a board game that I'm buying on Steam. The argument certainly could be made that board games like Hasbro board games, Monopoly, Battleship should just be purchased in the real world and played there. But it depends on how often you're going to play the games. I think a lot of people probably aren't going to play them that often, and your best bet actually is to go to a library and rent out board games, because most public libraries will rent you out a board game. You play it once or twice and then try it out. Cluedo is another example of games like this. We can look here for red flags at the 2 negative reviews. Yeah, I'm still not sure what I think about this game. The old version, yes, always fun when playing when someone else, not the computer. The new version that you can also play is a little wild, I think, for the price. I would not buy this game. The only reason I did buy this game is that the wife wanted to play with me, and it won't even work on her computer, so in the long run I lost 2 times. And then you have DLC is ridiculous priced. It's weird that a game would not be able to run on a PC. Like 2 gigahertz processor, DirectX 10 GPU, 2 gigabits of hard drive space, sound card, Windows 7. That's probably even more than you really would even need to run a game like this. I suppose as long as it has single player, there might be a reason to want to own this and have this on the wish list. Unfortunately, that's about all I can say about it, in all honesty. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to break up this video, so I'll just be right back. Jump cut. And we're back. Sorry for that. So yeah, Hasbro's Battleship is going to the wish list. It's a good enough game. I hope that's what I was saying before I took the break, but I may have changed my mind. And of course, moving on. Oh, by the way, it is worth mentioning, since this game is tag nudity, I do have this blur effect where I can move the cursor to the left of the screen, and we'll have to do that for any adult game until I can be fairly certain that there isn't anything not YouTube friendly on this game. As for this game, Hatsune Miku VR, it seems perfectly fine. I don't know why this is being tagged as nudity. Maybe there's a mod, or maybe there's a costume that you can purchase. The thing about music games are kind of weird, because I have no rhythm personally, so I really wouldn't cover them. The other thing is it's a VR game, so it requires VR, and I'm fairly certain I'm never going to buy a VR headset at this point in my life. So at best, I'm leaving games like this on the follow list just in case I buy a VR headset. But I'm only leaving good VR headsets games. And while this would be a game you would compare to Beat Saber, it does have the slight variety of being the extremely popular virtual AI idol singer Hatsune Miku anime character here, for lack of a better description. They want $24.99, which was kind of expensive It's part of a bundle. Sorry, some of these links are not loading because they have so many Chrome tabs open that it's taking up over half of my RAM. Like, I'm down to 64% of 16 gigs of RAM now. It's like a 5-song pack. But almost certainly I would guess that all of these song packs might get content ID'd by YouTube, even if I was to try and cover them. That being said, I don't really have a reason to remove this, and there's no description here as far as mature content or even different outfits. So this might be one of those rare instances where these are fan place tags, these are popular user defined tags, so somebody might have put that in there because of some third-party mod, or possibly just as a troll they put it in there. Let's see. If you look at a negative review, yeah, but I couldn't even recommend this to fans of Vocaloid, which is the software that you use to make Hatsune Miku songs. It's a mediocre experience in terms of both a game and a VR title that asks way too much money for what little content it offers. Yeah, I kind of would agree too on that. Well, let's face it, big popular things often do get licensed out in Japan for subpar products, and that's really all this probably is. It's just the makers of Vocaloid have licensed out the likeness of their character. So it kind of fails on the concept of being a game, a rhythm game. And what has happened certainly now in 2019 is Hatsune Miku is not even their main focus as their character. They've tried to move away from her into other characters and evolutions of the software that can... the software was groundbreaking when it first came out, Vocaloid, because you can type in text and have a text-to-speech engine vocalize that as singing text. This came out March 8th, 2018. So I could either decide I don't really need this on the follow list, or I can leave it on the follow list because of mob rule, just because it's 75% positive. And now is the time to make these kind of hard decisions and decide, would this be something worth getting if I got a VR headset tomorrow? And I think the answer is no. And I will fully admit that I sometimes get suckered. A flashy, colorful anime thumbnail and anime character will sucker me and catch my eyes visually more than a hyper-realistic AAA Western first-person shooter game like Call of Duty would. But yeah, I think this should leave the follow list. It's by far one of the most expensive VR games. It's not getting good reviews from the negative review perspective. It's getting good reviews probably just because of rabid fandom of Hatsune Miku. And if I looked at only the reviews in English, I wouldn't be surprised if it's down to 50% positive compared to Japanese fans who would particularly be likely to review it higher. It is only full audio in Japanese. That doesn't surprise me any. So yeah, I think Hatsune Miku VR should leave. Moving on, we have Heart Chain Kitty. This came out November 23rd, 2018. And I think that is pretty much its death knell at that point. It has 3 verified user reviews. It falls out of being relevant. What this looks like is a simplistic game of something, 3D platforming through some weird looking surfaces and textures. I don't really like the color palette that's being used here. It seems like it is really crazy looking for a color palette. Even the green star swipe is weird looking. $14.99, English and German. Some of the red flags we'll be looking for are if it's an English and Chinese or English and Russian. An English and German game doesn't mean probably too much other than it's possibly a weird German game, which is common. But weird German games often are good for what they are. We're looking for troll games and very low effort games. And this does seem like there is a lack of effort in this art color palette, or this is just some weirdness for weirdness sake type platformer. And I could see why I had this on the fall list, as I was looking for a Super Mario 64 clone style game, and since this game has come out, there's been other games that are better options. So Heart Chain Kitty is leaving the fall list. Most of these games are actually going to leave the fall list because there's already 1,000 games on the wish list, and they are of better quality and good quality. So I have a lot to pick through when it comes down to a summer sale or any kind of sale on Steam, and I want to buy more games, and I have plenty of games I haven't played already. Next, we have a game called Heart of the Moon, The Mask of Seasons. Now, what this looks like to me is a hidden object game, but it's tagged as a match 3 puzzle single player game. This video is not going anywhere, and we really don't have time to watch every single trailer of every single game. So it does seem like it's taking kind of the general ideas of a hidden object game, which most hidden object games are done on the cheap, and instead it's doing a match 3 game. And at this point, the only reason I'd want to play a match 3 game is it would either have to be extremely relevant in this terms of people playing it and liking it, which is not the case here. This came out December 6, 2018, so it's had 6 months. Or it would have to have a special visual appeal, like the game Honey Pop, which is an adult match 3 game with romance and sex scenes thrown in for no real reason. So this doesn't have anything special to it, really. Find the difference puzzles are rare. Like, I haven't seen a lot of find the difference games, but that is basically just a hidden object in reverse. We might keep an eye out to see if some games have too many achievements or only one achievement, because then it very possibly is an achievement game only designed to be sold because it gives away 100 achievements or one achievement, so that you can get 100% achievement completion easily. Here's Honey Pop, as I was mentioning, which is overwhelmingly positive. Or if I wanted to play a match 3 game that was the predecessor to match 3 games, I'd play one of the Bejeweled games, or there are several other match 3 games on Steam. And then You Must Build a Boat is a great example of a match 3 game that throws in an RPG element and puts a spin on it. A lot of these reviews were activated by keys, so that means you don't really know if they got the game for free or not, and that's why only verified purchases through Steam are counted at the top. That's what this logo means. Sometimes it'll even say product got for free, but that is a self-reporting button that you click when you type in the review. So yeah, this is leaving the fall list. I'm not even sure why it's on the wish list, but I have come to realize that a decent amount of games like that on the fall list are because I accidentally added them to the wish list and I was trying to remove them, and it takes a lot of effort to like clicks on the mouse to remove something from the wish list, where it's easier to remove them from the fall list. But actually, even doing that, you're just making more work for yourself later on. Next game we have here is called Heliophobia, which would either be, my guess, fear of helium or fear of balloons or fear of floating objects or helixes or something like that. This looks like it is they're saying it's a first-person horror mystery adventure presented in a surreal non-linear narrative. That's a lot of key phrases there for search engine optimization. What this very possibly is an early example of an asset flip game. It does have 80% positive of 10 user reviews, but it came out October 18th, 2018. So it's halfway towards the 20 reviews I'd like to see it have. So it's not really relevant. This screen here looks pretty badly made, like a giant knobs and switches in comparison, because assuming this is a 10-foot tall room, that means that 7 feet of it are this panel, which would then break down to a half a foot, a 6-inch lever, and foot-long lights and giant text to control lights. It's way off scale. What you're seeing in these screenshots are empty rooms, not rooms that have enemies in them or puzzles or gameplay. So they're trying to hide the fact that it's lacking content, I imagine. And it seems like it is just all over the place. This is $9.99. It's English with full audio, which might be something to consider in visual novel games. If it has full English audio, that would be very helpful. Let's see. There are 3 negative reviews. Let's see what they are. Did not have to finish the game. Let's see. You have to replay parts when you click on a photo. Story is too weird. Graphics look bad. Sound was very annoying at times. The only key rebinding once you start a new run. It's the one negative review. Let's look at the positive reviews. Like, the game was just short of okay. Steam needs a neutral option. So many people say that. I think, frankly, Steam would be better off if it had a neutral option for good AAA games, because then you'd have less negative reviews. But I think if you ran the percentages over every single average game, having a neutral option would have them lose positive reviews more at a higher rate than lose negative reviews. So smaller games like this that only have 10 reviews could easily drop it down from 80% to 70%, 60% positive, and that's not what Steam would want to do, because it is a storefront trying to sell you things. Heliophobia, now that my standards are a lot higher from whenever I added this to the fall list, looks like nothing of any real interest and is leaving the fall list as such. Next we have a game called Hell Warders, which is mixed at 69% of 65 reviews. It came out February 21st, 2019, so it hasn't actually been given the full 6 months, but my goal here is not to make sure everything is given 6 months to settle in and determine that it might be a good game 6 months later. My goal here is to remove games from the fall list, either adding them to the wish list or removing them completely. And frankly, most games should have at least 20 reviews by the time a couple weeks have happened, if it's going to have any relevance in any kind of player base. It doesn't really make a lot of sense for me to play some kind of hidden gem on my small time YouTube channel and get maybe 5 or 10 views on that video, and maybe get 5 or 10 other people interested in playing that game. That's not going to save a game in any way. It seems like Hell Warders is kind of a clone of Orcs Must Die, where you lay down traps and or maybe you just summon enemies and you're defending a tower, for lack of a better term, as enemies are coming. I kind of like the art style on some of these enemies, and the big bosses are an interesting idea. It's weird that you would make a tower defense strategy game around that kind of animation. This is $14.99, and just because of the rating alone, it's not going to make it. Let's see. It's a decent progression system, rewarding perfect level. Cons, serious balance issues. Friendly units such as stats such as damage are not visible anywhere in the game. Enemy scaling penalizes solo players. Limited player control over units. Half of the total unit roster is basically useless. It's an uninspired, mediocre process. So, yeah. And there's several recommendations here of other games. Orcs Must Die not being one of them, but Death Trap is a similar game where you put down traps and effectively defend a tower. So Hell Warders, by mob rule alone, fails to make the market, and you can see here it's mixed reviews when it's at below 70%, so we are more grading on an ABC scale than 50% or 51% positive means it's a positive game, or if it was 49% positive it would be a negative game. Next we have a game on Steam called Hell Sign, which is extremely highly reviewed. This came out November 9th, 2018. What is about this game that makes it so well reviewed? 493 reviews is more than I suspect anybody could really afford to pay if you were buying reviews. I'd imagine you'd have barely 60 reviews if you were buying reviews on Steam before you got caught. So there must be an actual good game here, which is weird because looking at this trailer, I'm really just kind of seeing what looks like a top-down twin-stick shooter game, but it does seem slower. Most top-down twin-stick shooters would have enemies coming at all times. This seems closer to a strategy, almost Diablo-esque game. And when you look at this inventory here, if the screenshots will load up, which it did, this definitely feels like, what if you made Diablo 3 with a modern age and a modern time fighting against monsters? And then there seems to be a whole skill tree system here. It seems like this is actually a game, and a good game. Unfortunately, it's early access, and it's been given 6 months. So normally I would say it doesn't deserve another 6 months, but since this is being positively reviewed very highly, now I also would disagree with the idea of being version 1.0.15 and calling yourself still early access. Once you hit version 1.0 anything or 1 point anything, you should call yourself out of early access, have a finished product, and then consider DLC or expansions. We could look at the 82 negative reviews here, but they're complaining about the controls, which might be a problem but might not be, because it might be people playing with keyboard and mouse, or it might be people playing with a non-standard joystick like an Xbox controller or a PlayStation controller. Well, this game deserves another 6 months. That being said, if I get back in 6 months to do another fall list cleanup, which I might have to do, or if I get back in a year to do a fall list cleanup, which would be nicer, if this is not out of early access at this point, it's just going to be too bad, so sad. You can't really be in early access for a year, even if you're a good game, because you can only make that first impression once, and I seriously doubt any mainstream video game journalists are going to play this game Hellsign when it comes out of early access unless they throw a lot of advertisement money towards them and effectively bribe it. Bribe the journalists to review it. Next we have a game called Helping Hand, which is a game where you're actually controlling one of the hands, the left hand of a character, and you can see with the thumbnail you can make several gestures with that left hand, which sounded like a funny joke kind of game that you could play for a short time, and I imagined it was just going to be a short experience, and that would have been it. And it's kind of a joke about how many different ways could you mess up something or do something right with a hand gesture, which is frankly probably a lot. That being said, those reviews seem to indicate that for $8.99, this game did not succeed. This is July 26, 2018 was it came out. It has a third-party end-user license agreement for no reason. It has a 24 achievements, which seems weird. You're controlling the entirety of the fingers by putting your fingers on the number row key and then the spacebar for your thumb, which is not a standard layout for controls, but it seems like that would work pretty well. The negative reviews are it's basically one of those flash games you played in school 15 years ago instead of doing work, except those were free. The game dies on the quality of the comedy writing. Sometimes you hear about a game getting deemed for programmer art. Well, this is programmer comedy. Not worth buying. I've never heard of programmer art, but that is probably a great phrase to use. I've seen a lot of games that look like they're done in MS Paint by a programmer that look horrible. Got for around $1.75. That's about as much as it's worth. So the price is just way too high, and it puts it out of line, according to one review. It's a shame, and there's nothing quite like this as a concept, which I think what you could see here is if you were playing a bigger first-person shooter game and there was a section where you broke your hand or broke your arm and had to make hand gestures or could make hand gestures in the middle of a cutscene, that might be a fun little Easter egg or a fun little mini game. But having it be your own game and then asking for way more, this easily could have been $1.99, and then I would have put it on the wish list and got it when it was on sale down to about $1, if not 69 cents. But as it stands, they're asking too much and they're not delivering by much, and standards must go up, quality must go up, so that's leaving the follow list. Next we have Herald, an interactive period drama, book 1 and 2. This came out February 22nd, 2017, and it is 96% positive of the 57 verified purchase reviews. It's tagged alternate history and point and click. I'm a sucker for point and click games. So what gets me about this is, why is this even on the follow list? Because I know I'm a sucker for these types of games. Sorry again that so many of these screenshots are not loading up, but yeah, I don't know what the problem was. The price doesn't look bad. This seems to be in a queer games bundle, so I assume you're playing as a character that is LGBTQI or something, which that's fine by me. I like the animation on this quite a bit. I don't know if you'd even really want to qualify this as a point and click as much as it seems like it might be a Telltale style of game more than anything. Price looks good. It's being supported as of May 23rd. It's full English audio. That's helpful. It's 77 on Metacritic, which I kind of wish the standards were higher on Metacritic, but quite frankly, 77 on Metacritic is good. Let's see. I've really no reason to even be digging for a negative review. Somebody hates the animation. Yeah, I can't really listen to one negative line of review on top of 56 other positive reviews, so yeah, this definitely should go to the wish list. Looking at the video, it seems like it's a self-insertion story, which is a criticism maybe of the writer, but that doesn't really mean much to me as far as video games. I see nothing here wrong with this game. This deserves to be on the wish list. So we're down now to 2 games. I can only assume this game was in early access before, or maybe this was a case of book 1 and 2 is let's see, book 3 and 4 will tell new stories and will be released as episodic content at a later date. So that might be why this is on the fall list, is did this developer ever make book 3 or 4? And okay, now I see. And I guess that reloaded everything, so now the pictures will actually load. Which I probably should just reload every page, but that'll take too long. Yeah, that's questionable. Now I see. I was doing the research. An own contained story, book 3 and 4 haven't come out yet. And this is February 22nd, 2017. I don't think it would be fair to not put this on the wish list, because what they're effectively saying, even though they're selling it as episodic content, which is always a bad way, it's not a consumer friendly way to sell games. If each story is its complete story, and book 1 and 2 are their own complete stories in this game, and even if the game is relatively short, this would be, if I left this on the fall list just because the sequel hasn't come out, then I would have to take so many games off the wish list because their sequels haven't come out. The Doom reboot, for instance, has its sequel, Doom Eternal, that's not out as of this recording. Should I have not purchased and played half of that game? I'm halfway through it with it right now. Or Borderlands 2 is a great example, because Borderlands 3, as of this recording, hasn't come out. Should I have not purchased that? It's kind of a ridiculous argument to make, to say that a developer has to finish a serialized product, and that's really what I think this would be better described as a serialized product instead of an episodic product. Episodes being more scheduled, and quite frankly, if your game came out in 2017 and it's 2019 now, you really didn't have a schedule to release the other 2. So yeah, this still deserves to be on the wish list. Next we have Heretic, or Heretic Operative. I guess it's Heretic. It's 92% positive of 38 reviews. A turn-based board game. Is this still early access? Because I think that was the reason why this was on the fall list. A lot of these games, I see them when I'm streaming every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, so I see them as of day one and they have no reviews. And that quickly changes. And I think this is an example of a game where that quickly changed. In all fairness, though, I will say this should go to the wish list, but I also wouldn't be surprised when my money has to meet my mouth if I was very reticent to purchase a game like this, because it doesn't look particularly short and it doesn't look particularly enthralling or interesting. So I could see it also taking way too long to play even a single game. But at the moment, from the standards I'm using right now, I think Heretic Operative deserves to be on the wish list. Next we have Hero Go, and there was a game very similar to this that I believe was a clone of this game. I believe I played this exact game on my cell phone. It is the idea of the game Snake, except for the fact that as you collect more heroes and make your snake line, or your Congo line for lack of a better word, longer, each of the heroes has a style of attack that's attacking enemies, and you're collecting gold to unlock more heroes. It was very microtransaction-y, the one I was playing on my cell phone, and this looks exactly like it, so it's either a direct clone or otherwise. It frankly was a fun game for about 5 minutes, and then the microtransactions and the grinding made it pretty obvious that it's not something that I wanted to play for any long amount of time. And I think that's probably true for most people, because it has 6 reviews and it came out May 16th, 2018. It's 99 cents discounted right now, so it's not asking anything, but it is also a red flag here because it's in English and Chinese only languages, which makes me feel like it's probably a low effort port. And it has 68 achievements, which seems way too high for a game like that. Let's see. There's a one negative review that's not even in English. So this seems like Italian, if I was to guess, or maybe German review. I don't need to see the negative review though. This game has no relevancy. Games like this that are cell phone games that have been ported really don't have any relevancy. I would like to see Steam start to support Google phones and Android, Apple phones as a secondary market, and then we might get better quality games and tie-in games from the AAA games that you usually purchase on Steam if you're a PC player. But I want to see good mobile games in general, not bad mobile games. And I'm doing things all out of order here. So Hero Go is leaving the follow list. I'm not missing much. Next we have Heroes of Might and Magic 5, Hammers of Fire. Let's see. This is 80% positive. It came out 2006. Let's see. The online multiplayer is shut down, so you only can play the single player. So it's questionable whether you really would want to pay $9.99 for this. It's questionable whether I want to play any of the Heroes of Might and Magic games. The thing is, they're old games that took a really long time to play a single encounter in a single map. And I remember playing Heroes Might and Magic 3 for hours and hours and hours, and they're up to barely 5 or 6, I think, today, because they kind of were off and on, and not all of them were great. This is kind of a game that's an expansion of another game that you need Might and Magic 5, and I don't think I even own that. And this is 66%. So what I would say here is if I buy Might and Magic 5, I probably would buy a complete edition. And then it would be a whole bundle, I'm sure. Yeah, apparently I already own some of the Hero of Might and Magic games, so I could get Might and Magic 7 Deluxe and Might and Magic 5. Apparently I own all the others that are available, which apparently is just Clash of Heroes, Might and Magic Clash of Heroes, which I do recommend that game, and there's nothing like the other Heroes of Might and Magic games. So some of the older games are not even in that bundle. Interesting. This is almost a series that I kind of want to own to support the developer and publisher Ubisoft, but I kind of don't care either. It certainly would not be my top tier choice to support them. And frankly, I don't know what you do with the Heroes of Might and Magic series. If you make it too similar to what was already there, I doubt you'll get any new players. And if you make it too different, I doubt you'll get any of the old players. And I don't think that there's a ton of demand either way. So, this add-on for something that I don't even own, that's an easy decision. It should leave the follow list. If I buy the deluxe version of the game, I assume I'm getting this DLC. If I'm not, well, then I'll deal with that when I buy Might and Magic 5 or Heroes of Might and Magic 5. There were other Might and Magic games that weren't the Heroes of series also, but otherwise I would say Might and Magic as a brand has fallen to the wayside and done a terrible job maintaining relevancy and being a sellable brand compared to something like Dungeons and Dragons. So next we have a game on Steam called Heroes of Might and Magic 5 Tribes of the East, which apparently doesn't require the base game. Interesting. But they're not widescreen, and I don't know if these really are even the style of games that I would be thinking of when you're playing Heroes of Might and Magic. It should be a turn-based strategy game, yeah. So it is still the same style. But again, servers shut down. Ubisoft doesn't care about them. You might have to play it through Uplay. Even Heroes of Might and Magic 3 HD Edition is reviewed mixed, so it seems like their releases of these games are not getting well received. Which I don't know what they're doing to drop the ball so badly, because the Heroes of Might and Magic series should be pretty well. Don't confuse it with the Magic the Gathering series. Of course, then Magic the Gathering also has its problems, where the 2014 version is immediately replaced with the 2015 version, which has mixed reviews compared to the first one being positive reviews. Magic the Gathering up to Magic Arena, I assume Magic Arena will stop doing annualized releases in which you have to pay $10 to get the newest version of the game. So this might also be a Games for Windows Live game, if that's what this complaint is, saying they can't save their progress. Games for Windows Live was a lot of games that is a mess now that it's been shut down and not supported. This game, of course, is leaving the follow list too. And fortunately, we only had a couple of games in that series. I have so many other games to play too. Going back and playing an old game like Heroes of Might and Magic is gonna feel very much like a just step back, and not even a very nostalgic step back. It's not a realistic game to play in the modern age for how long it takes. Next we have this game called Heaven, H-E-V-N, single player first person sci-fi adventure. This came out September 24th, 2018, 2014. It has 6 user reviews. The problem with something like this is this could easily be an asset flip game, and the graphics have just gotten so good on asset flip games now that it's becoming close to impossible to tell. From what I'm looking at, it doesn't really look like an asset flip game, or what I would classify as an asset flip game. This looks like this is probably a first-person shooter game that was made by some team that didn't have enough funding to make a full-length experience, if I was to guess. So it probably is rather short, but it might be a full game. It's $19.99. It was updated April 10th. I'd like to see what the average playtime is, and that is something we can do. 2.4 hours on record. Typical Unity game runs badly on my Do Xeon's mad gameplay. Here we have somebody who got it for free and played an hour and a half on it. Here's somebody who played 15 hours on it and says they can't recommend this game. When it's finished, it will be okay. Is it finished? Because this came out October 22nd, 2018. Yeah, all of these reviews are pretty old. This was April 25th, so this is the most recent review. Typical Unity game runs badly on my dual Xenons. So it does feel like it is a Unity asset flip game. Let's see. Major update, they say. Is it a finished product? I guess it doesn't matter. It falls out of relevancy. Like, it failed to catch people's attention in its first 6-month window. And so, even if Heaven at some point is a good game, or is a good game right now, it's too little too late. So it's leaving the follow list. Next we have a game called Hexa Gnome, which has 9 user reviews. It came out December 10th, 2018. This was a weird looking black and white, what I describe as single screen Unity puzzle games. It seems like these objects move in certain patterns, and so it's somehow a turn-based puzzle game. Usually when I'm looking at a puzzle game, I get a general idea of how it's to be played, or how you're supposed to do it, but I actually am not following here. And let's see. I guess it falls out of relevancy because there aren't enough reviews. English, Turkish, and simplified Chinese seems like a strange combination of languages also. Apparently it's a sequel to a game called Hexaturn, and I don't think I've bought Hexaturn. And I guess Hex Slide is maybe from the same developer, maybe not. We could investigate that. But I don't think it really matters too much. Hexa Gnome and then the bundle. So Hex Slide is a different company, different developer. So yeah, the first game was positive, and then they made a bad sequel, for lack of a better term. And yeah, I don't see anything about Hexa Gnome that makes me want to own it or play it. I did try to cover several of these single screen Unity puzzle games. In theory, I do like these puzzle games, but in actual use and practicality, quite often before I've done the 100 puzzles or so that a game like this offers, I've already burned out and lost interest in them, and don't even make it to the end for all the grindiness of the puzzles and the time-consuming difficulty of a lot of puzzles. Alright. Next game we have is Hexa Homogeny, or Hegemony. This game came out November 11th, 2018, and I thought this was a funny looking game, but even when I first saw it and put it on the fall list, I pretty well knew it was falling closer to an asset flip game than something that would at one point be a finished product. It's witches playing against each other in 4x4 matches, which I think pretty much means that it's mostly focused on multiplayer, and a multiplayer game with less than 5 reviews in 6 months tells you that there definitely won't be a player base here. And when you look at something like this, you've got a mini-map taking up a lot of space here, a kind of generic health and magic potion screen, a team score taking up a lot of the screen, and then what I can only assume are cooldowns for certain spells that you cast. So you've got something in every area. And then the witches, as they're being shown, are probably just asset flips, and the buildings are just asset flips. I like the gameplay concept, and that's kind of all I do like. This is labeled as early access, true, but they've had 6 months, and there is not enough change here to impress me by any means. It's online multiplayer only, English and Turkish as language, which is again a weird combination. The one review we have here is negative. So this got no coverage and no reviews in the English language. It's a shame. It's a shame a good idea was turned into a bad game, but that happens quite often. I wouldn't have covered this game anyways because it's online multiplayer only. There is a couple of games that have come to Steam that are where you play as a witch. Well, at least one I know in particular called Bullet Witch, which is not being shown here, but I guess I could just type in the name. Here you go, Bullet Witch, which was a pretty bad game when I played it on the Xbox 360, but I wouldn't mind covering it for its weirdness. And here you have a witch with a broom she rides on that also turns into a gun, and she kind of runs throughout the entirety of the game, from point A to point B in terrible levels, doing poorly controlling maneuvers. Eventually you run into a boss fight or two, and yeah, it's a little surprising that this game is even at 67% positive. Seems like some people had a better experience than me and really liked it. But you can see it's 51% on Metacritic, and that's probably about the closest thing where you can play as a witch where you're not then playing as an anime girl who looks like a witch. So similar games might be Skullgirls Zombie Hunters, which is killing zombies and you're not really playing as witches then. So yeah, maybe we'll get some hyper-realistic witches at some point. You would think with Halloween that would be something that somebody would invest in, but seems like it never really happens. Next game, and probably talked way too long there, we have Hidden Paws Mystery, which is tagged as a hidden object game, and I really don't want to play any hidden object games unless this is a 3D hidden object game and not just a standard 2D hidden object game, which maybe it is. Yeah. Now, in all fairness, this might be a bit of an asset flip game, but it does seem like what you're doing is you're in a 3D environment looking for cats hidden in that 3D environment. This is 100% positive of its 26 verified reviews. Came out December 18th, 2018. So by both mob rule, it has relevancy, and it does have an interesting gameplay mechanic. Normally, if I see hidden object, it is a flat 2D screen where I have to find a bunch of things. This is more of a hide and go seek style game. Apparently they're adding a hint system, or they added a hint system, which probably would be helpful. There's 20 islands and 100 cats, so you're not going to run into a lot of gameplay there. So yeah, I think this one deserves, now that I've seen enough people like it, I think Hidden Paws Mystery deserves to be on the wish list. And I'll have to be kind of careful to remind myself that it isn't just a standard hidden object game. Next we have Hidden Sack's Zemodian Stone for, I don't know how you'd pronounce that. And this looks like this might be another hidden object game, but with more going on. No, it seems more closer to a point and click game where you click on things and it changes the environment. Interactive levels and finding things seems to be your two key selling points on this game. It's a little black and white, which I don't hate that, but it can be annoying. So this does seem like it is kind of more of a standard hidden object game, but with an interactive story. We're seeing 71% of 14 reviews positive. This came out February 28th, 2019. I could give this more time, and I guess I should because it's early access. So I don't really have to consider this game right now, and it would be kind of bad to consider it. It says it's a ripoff of the game Hidden Folks. I've seen the game Hidden Folks, and when you look at it, it's overwhelmingly positive. So I imagine this is already on the wish list. I could make that consideration and say, yes, this is a clone, a ripoff of another game, but it's not like what anything Hidden Folks is doing is that different. So, yeah, I'll give this a little bit more time, and then probably either add it to the wish list if it stays positive, or remove it. That one was not one I needed to really consider. Next we have the game High Hell from Devolver Digital publisher. This is a game where you're given missions to break into offices in hell, and you're given several goals, whether it's to steal money or burn a painting or something like that, or burn money. And then you, in this platforming shooter game, jump off the edge once you've accomplished your final goal. So here he's burning a painting, and then all of a sudden a bunch of goats show up, and then he's escaping. And there's the door kicking animation, and I could see this game being slightly interesting. I could also see that that it might get boring after a few hours. Devolver Digital games in general do have that problem of being silly enough to sell themselves. It's tagged with nudity, this game is too. I wonder what that's about. Yeah, I don't really see why I shouldn't put this on the fall list or the wish list, if I can keep my list straight in my head. Yeah, I should put it on the wish list. 79 on Metacritic, but in all honesty, I think I would have to think really long and hard about buying this, particularly at $9.99, because it's probably a $2.99 style game. Something that you have to go in knowing you may only play it once and get your fill from that, and that might be good enough. And the price per hour concept in video games is still really the only concept you can use, because even if a game is amazingly good and is 30 minutes short, you're going to think real long and hard if a game was $10 and 30 minutes of gameplay, of entertainment. Next we have a game called High Score Processing Unit, which seems to be a what is that game called? Well, the arcade game where you bounce balls and break bricks. There's a ton of clones of that game. Arkanoid, that's what I'm thinking of. This is an Arkanoid clone. It's with the difference being that it's a 3D circle around voxel images, voxel 3D pixel based images that you're bouncing balls back around and trying to break this. I probably saw something interesting in this concept when it first came out. That being said, it came out May 4th, 2018. It has 4 user reviews. It's $1.99. It lost its relevancy pretty quickly. It, requires you to connect your Steam account to a third-party account for no good reason whatsoever. Yeah, there's nothing here on second look that makes this worth being on the wish list at all. There's so many Arkanoid clones and none of them are ever interesting or doing anything different. Next we have a game called Himiko Satori, which seems to be a positioning turn-based JRPG style game. It's rated 100% positive. It came out January 30th, 2019. It's still early access though. So again, this is an example of a game where I really didn't need to consider it. I just opened too many tabs. And the reason why that is because when you're looking at the fall list, it just tells you some basic bits of information, and being in early access clearly is not prevalently highlighted. This is an $18.99, so if this does come out of early access, I would have to consider quite a bit whether I wanted to pay that much for what is being shown here. But for now, I guess I'll just give it 6 more months and move on. Let's see. Next we have a visual novel called His Chunubyo Cannot Be Cured. I don't know what that means, but I suspect it might be heartbreak or love or lust. It could be any kind of phrase like that. Or maybe it's just an obsession with video games. Okay, so when we're looking at visual novels, we want to look at the art style. This looks like a Japanese anime art style from a Japanese animator. Often the art styles look bad. Often they're inconsistent. We might want to look at the character designs a little bit. We're seeing a lot of variety of hairstyles and colors of your choice. Here, this is $14.99, which is a little high for a visual novel of unknown developers. This is being published by Manigamer, which I believe Manigamer has started publishing a lot of their visual novels just directly on their own storefront too, and not listing some of the more adult ones on the storefront. It says it has full audio English, and I'm sure that's what caught my attention here, is the idea that that I wouldn't have to read all the text if I was going to cover a visual novel like this. That being said, this is almost certainly not the highest tier of quality of writing or the highest tier of visual novels out there, and I think I've pretty well resolved that if I'm going to cover any visual novels, it's going to be the top 10 ever made, not just random ones just because they have full audio. And I don't think I even if I really learned to love visual novels, I don't think I could stream them on my YouTube channel and get any decent amount of views. Let's see. Let's see. It says here at the bottom, please support our first full product in Kickstarter success. So I guess it is a full product. Let's see. Of the reviews, these is one negative. I wouldn't be surprised if it's not in English. So, and as such, useless. I think, though, this game just kind of needs to fall off the follow list because this is not a recognizable visual novel. Yeah, this is not going to load. Just as soon as it loads. It's a visual novel equivalent to a B-rated movie. It's very meh. It doesn't sound that much, but I guess it's kind of alright. I wouldn't spend that much money on it. Yeah, I think I'm of the same opinion. This is probably fine, but too expensive, and it's not tied into any kind of Japanese light novel or anime or anything like that, so it's gotta go. Next we have a game that's tagged nudity, so let me just look at the screenshots real fast. I guess one of the benefits of having half of the screenshots not loaded up is that you don't have to deal with too much of that. It seems fine. So we have Hop Step Sing Kimamami Summer Vacation 8 High Quality Edition. This seems to be a VR game where it's anime girls in bikinis in the summer vacation, and they seem to be doing coordinated dance moves. I assume there's some music here. It's a this might only be one song included here. $6.99 is a little low for Steam for VR games. There's a whole bundle here of different songs, I think each being sold with a VR music video for the last yeah, it literally is just one song. This is full Japanese audio, but supporting the interface for English and Chinese, which English is the secondary language most spoken in Asia. So we've got a relatively cheap VR game that's really just a music video. I think it's pretty easy to remove that from the follow list. I probably didn't even know what it was. I said earlier, sometimes I get blinded by the anime aesthetic and the bright colors. In this case, I'm actually literally being blinded by it because the brightness on these screenshots are so incredibly high. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some elements that change the outfits and such. Seems like also the story changes based on who you're staring at, which is something that the VR alone would have a focus on. Is, are you looking to the left, are you looking to the right? But you could easily emulate that in the in controller motions or even eye tracking software. So yeah, Hop Step Sing, not making it to the follow list, which we can just pass the exact same judgment on the next game, Hop Step Sing Kizutake Ki Shining, Kisei Ki Te Ki Shining. That's a mouthful. People who are reviewing this are liking these games as these music video style games, and it is from Geika. I don't even know how you pronounce the publisher, but I do know this publisher, and they're recognizable. $4.99. You would get all four if you bought the bundle for $21.56, but again, you kind of have to know this idol group too, and I wouldn't be surprised if Hop Step Sing was being heavily pushed to be promoted as the next big idol group and didn't actually succeed at that, because I've never heard of Hop Step Sing. Next we have Hop Step Sing Kiss 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 High Quality Edition, which there are more reviews, and when this came out June 29, 2017, so this idol group probably, unless it's a virtual idol group, instead of being actual singers and actual dancers that are just being animated as anime characters for these games, that they would be 2 years into probably at best a 4-year career before then they would have to retire for being too old. So yeah, easy decision on all of these, and I'm not sure if the other ones were tagged nudity otherwise. I think one of them was, but it seems like the others aren't, and that kind of makes sense, because if you are trying to promote an idol group of Japanese idols who very potentially are underage, even the anime characters being anything than 100% pure and proper would be inappropriate. This came out September 10th, 2018, and yeah, people still are liking these somewhat, but it really doesn't make sense to buy these if you own VR. It doesn't really make sense to buy these at all. Weird collection. I wonder why I even thought for a second that would be something I'd want. Clearly my decision patterns have changed over the last couple of years, but I kind of questioned maybe I was just putting it on the follow list because I thought it might be something interesting to do on YouTube, but then if I did it on YouTube it would almost get copyright claimed. It would be a really expensive thing to have to purchase, and on top of having to purchase VR. So I probably can only guess that I was not thinking very clearly and just being lazy and just saying, yeah, just throw that in the follow list and I'll deal with it later. Because that really, they're not games, so it's kind of silly to have non-games when I'm looking for games to criticize. Next we have a game called Horde Zombie Outbreak. This is 88% positive, but has not met the 20 arbitrary number of reviews. It came out July 30th, 2018, and it's still in early access. It's a game where you control a horde of zombies, and you're not shooting the zombies. It might be a little hard to tell that's what you're doing. And I like that concept. I'd like to see a game come out and be successful using this concept. Unfortunately, this one has just been given its 6 months. It's still in early access. It wants $10.99. I don't think this game can be given any more time for what is just a funny concept for a game. It needed to be finished on day one and out and ready to sell on day one, and not tried to sell via early access. There are so many games on Steam that are labeled as early access and just never came out of early access, or came out of early access in a practically abandoned state where there is just no new content or no complete content or anything worth playing. Next we have a game called Hot Lava, which there are several of these games in development, but also it seems like none of them have actually successfully been the finished product. And so this one doesn't even have a release date, and this is an example of a game that definitely should not be on my follow list. I want to get rid of all games that don't have release dates. This was announced either very early 2019 or late 2018, maybe even earlier than that. And it's from Clay Entertainment, so we kind of know this developer. They're the people that make Don't Starve, but they don't have a finished product. They don't even have an early access game. This is just, you can put it on the wish list if you'd like to. And there is something questionable about, can you take the idea and the concept of making a video game version of the concept of playing The Floor is Lava? And I'm not sure you really can. And in a real way, this is really just making a platforming game and putting it in some unique areas. I would also say Don't Starve is a flat 2D animated game, so it's maybe pushing Clay Entertainment's abilities to have a 3D level style of game. But for now, this needs to leave the follow list. I don't need to follow games that aren't even out yet. Next we have Hotel Transylvania 3 Monsters Overboard, and I'm going to take a break and drink some water so you can watch the screenshots as they go by. Sorry about that, but talking straight for hours on end does wear out one's voice. Now, I will say I was a fan of Hotel Transylvania 1 and 2 as far as movies. A movie tie-in game for a kids movie doesn't sound terrible as an idea to try to play more kid-friendly games. That being said, this has 3 user reviews. It came out July 10th, 2018. It's $19.99. And it kind of falls out of relevancy because, yeah, even when this came out, Hotel Transylvania 3 was probably out of theaters. And now it has long since been out of theaters. And the Hotel Transylvania game doesn't... The series of Hotel Transylvania movies isn't a sticking around series like a Disney movie series, unfortunately. Let's see. There's one negative review I'm seeing. I don't even think it matters, though, as far as reviews. It's just not relevant. It really isn't. I would also say Hotel Transylvania as a concept does not make a standalone game that makes sense. Like, do you even recognize that this is supposed to be Dracula? Do you even recognize that this is supposed to be the son of the mummy and the son of Frankenstein and son of the mummy, and I have no idea who those characters are? Do you recognize that this is supposed to be Dracula's daughter? A character introduced in the Hotel Transylvania movies. Like, yeah, you really can't take any of that information in and realize what kind of game it is without having them watch the movies relatively recently. Alright, next we have a visual novel called How to Date a Magical Girl, which sounds like an interesting idea for a game. And then we have what clearly is a horribly bloody shadow on the wall, which takes the game in a different direction. I would also say this animation style seems pretty different from that animation style. And this animation style looks alright. But I wouldn't be surprised if this is actually closer to a Korean animator and then a Japanese animator. From what I can just guess. It's $8.99. It's English only with subtitles, so it doesn't even support any Asian country, where Asian game visual novels are gonna be most attractable to Asian countries. Like, Asian countries love visual novels. Western countries very rarely even play them. Here's your standard. All characters are 18 years or older. Game scenes may frighten and disturb some people. Warnings. Let's see. Here we have a negative review. It's mediocre, average at best, with the cast being the strongest point. They're all the same anime archetypes that you can find anywhere else, who've all been written to much greater effect elsewhere. Your time and money would probably be better spent off on something better. And yeah, I think that is where this really just resolves again. I've never heard of this developer or publisher also. So clearly I had far too many visual novels on my wish list and follow list, and standards have been raised quite a bit, and in all honesty, I'm not even sure I'd play any visual novel ever on my YouTube channel, but if I am going to play some, it's going to be like 5 or 10 over the course of 5 or 10 years. Next we have a game called Hoyo Ongjiji. That sounds Chinese to me. Says it's a point-and-click adventure game with beautiful pixel art. Play as the water strider Hoyon, the guardian of the pond, who takes a journey to meet the Buddha with a small lotus flower. Okay. Seems kind of old with the black bars on the side, and it seems like a simplistic point-and-click adventure game. This might be an extremely low-effort game too. That being said, it's 75% positive with 20 verified reviews. It's $3.99. It's English and Korean, so I was wrong about that. Let's look at the negative reviews and see. The beautiful graphics only serve to disguise an exceptionally boring game. The visuals are wonderful, blah 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 blah. Basically paying $5 to see art, as there's no real gameplay here, no sense of atmosphere, no interesting story, or even interesting dialogue, period. Too unorganized is another negative review. Yep. I think I agree with those negative reviews. I think they convinced me that this would be an incredibly short game, not really worth even $3.99, or even half of that. And let's be honest here, I'm not even that impressed by the art. I don't think it's that good. So this is leaving the follow list too, and yeah, that means we're losing a lot of games, and that's the point. These are the games that at best deserved one more shout out, and then they should never be mentioned again in most cases, or maybe there's a reason why it deserves to actually make it to the wish list, but we'd have to check that. Next we have Hunger Apartment, the place feeding you, warming you, and satisfying all your fantasies. Seems like this is a Hostile, that movie Hostile, where people are getting kidnapped and tortured and possibly eaten. I don't think that actually happens in the movie Hostile, but it seems like kind of what's happening here. So it's a horror adventure game from best I can tell. Let's see, mixed reviews at 67% positive of 80 reviews. Came out March 14th 2019, which means this is a great example of a game that did get coverage. People actually bought it and played it, and they didn't like it. Whereas so many games that came out in 2017, or that are on the wish list from even earlier than that, nobody found them. Nobody played them at all, and they just disappeared out of being irrelevant. Let's see. Since it says special Chinese games bundle, I suspect this might be a low effort Chinese game. But when looking at the languages, you've got a lot of languages that all claim to have full audio, which probably means the game just has sound effects in general and no actual speaking. Let's see. If we look at some negative reviews, game does not work, black screen. Okay, that's the only English language review. But when you look here and you start seeing a bunch of other language reviews, it becomes useless, but you see that there are other language reviews. I guess I can see this guy has 6 hours and he bought it on Steam before reviewing it. Or I think before reviewing it. 4.2 hours on record before reviewing it. 7 achievements doesn't really make it feel like it's an achievement game. This just doesn't look that good. And this is a game that suffers from what I call as dark screenshot syndrome, where a significant amount of every screenshot is really, really dark, hiding the fact that there's not much of a quality product behind there. Yeah, I don't see anything in this trailer that would change my mind on this game either. So Hunger Apartment is leaving the fall list. Probably shouldn't have been on the list either. And next we have Hyper Parasite, and that makes me suspect that at best there's 2 or 3 more games starting with the letter H. Let's see, this is 100% positive of 24 user reviews. It came out April 3rd, 2019. This looks like it is a top-down twin stick shooter style game with roguelike elements according to the description. Any game that has hyper in the name might be something I'm interested in, but it might also be something that causes me to feel like the game is going to be too difficult to actually play. I'm also seeing a lot of stuff going on at the screen at the same time, which makes it difficult to focus and know what you're supposed to look at. Sometimes screens would just be completely full of bullets, and then you're basically playing a bullet hell shooter at that point. It's $10.99, but it's early access, so what I just need to do, since it's still positive, is just leave this on the fall list. So that is done. Next we have a game called Hiss, Hyss, which says it's a puzzle platformer. I would say this feels like this is some kind of Norwegian or Middle European style game where it's being designed and animated to be kid friendly, but not by a Disney style storyteller. So it seems like you save kidnapped cows and you sometimes hit cows. Says it's a light-hearted puzzle adventure with a focus on platforming. Okay, and there's a big guy and a small guy. I don't see anything terrible about this. 100% positive of 11 verified purchases. $14.99. When did this come out? December 14th, 2018. Bad time for games to come out, frankly. In the middle of December. You're not going to get a lot of sales that way, and I think that's probably a great argument against it. Why this game is not got very many reviews or purchases is if you just kind of wait and release your game in January or February when there's a drought of games and potentially kids have gotten Christmas money and want to spend it buying new games, or maybe parents have paid off credit cards a little bit, although frankly January, February most parents probably haven't paid off credit cards that they ran up buying Christmas presents. But yeah, the last couple of months of the year are a terrible time to release games. You've missed Black Friday, you've missed the holiday rush. There's nothing wrong with this game though. I want to put it on the wish list. It's a little expensive, so it would be a bit of a risk, but there's no reviews that are negative. It doesn't have the 20 reviews I'd like to see, but when it's 100% positive, I think I can easily overlook that. So yeah, this is going to the wish list, which means we've got about 5 games that made it to the wish list, and we've been going for almost, I would say, 2 hours, and we got through all the games starting with the letter H. And we're ending on a very nicely animated looking game, but I believe this is actually still early access. No? Alright, well, it must have been early access before. We'll talk about Illusion, A Tale of the Mind later in the next recording. We are done with this recording. No, as always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos, because that helps me with YouTube and tells them that my videos are worth watching. If you want to get notifications, you need to click that notification bell, and then maybe you'll get notifications. Also, there's links down below to social media sites where you can get backup notifications through those. And if you want to support my channel further, which would be great, there's a link to Patreon. Or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist, or gift me a gift card, or just give me a game you'd like to see me cover, period. That is why I'm going through all of the follow list and curating the wishlist very much. As you can see, most games not making the cut. That's it for this recording, though. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.